really is the culmination of everything we've been talking about as far as reincarnation and the prospect of immortality, something that they talked about a lot in the ancient world, believe it or not. All of this really dealing with, which what have been my pet peeve, my main thing, my main source of research over the last 5 years has been in the existence of dinosaurs and dragons, and really understanding how that fits in with everything else, because it does. It's huge, whether you understand it or not. It fits in, and we're going to really get into that in this video. So we got to look at this stuff and really go back and pay attention to one of the main reasons why they wanted to deter us from, understanding the afterlife and understanding what that all entails. So when you look at the whole Abrahamic religions and understand that you obey the rules of the God or the rules of the religion, go to heaven. If not, you burn in hell forever. Now, in Islam, everybody's going to spend some time in hell, to atone for sins. But it's not eternity like in Christianity. Christians believe, of course, you burn forever. You don't make it to heaven, you go to hell, you burn forever, eternity. So a lot of people are real fearful of the prospect of, burning in hell for all eternity and having, experiencing eternal pain, which when you think about it is retarded, stupid. Now, the whole thing is one. We got to think about it on a physical level. That once you slam your hand in the door, right, the sensory receptors in your skin basically sends a message to your nerve fibers, which basically sends a message to your spine, that sends a message to your brain, that processes the information as pain. When you think about it, it's something that's really amazing, because it's almost like an alert system, alarm system, basically warning you that this is something that can destroy the body, that can harm the body, and you should be, wary of it. So that's pain. And pain, as we're talking about it, it's a process that can only be felt in a physical form. You need a physical body to experience what we know as pain. So to have the notion that you can experience pain for eternity in a spiritual body is ridiculous. If you take a piece of paper, throw it into a bucket of fire, it's going to burn, it's going to disintegrate into nothing. Same thing is going to happen to your flesh and skin and bones if the fire is right, just like it does in a cremation furnace. Put a body in there, burns it to ashes, burns it to nothingness eventually. So the whole prospect of an eternal pain, in spiritual form is weird when you need a body to experience that type of pain when you really understand it. So, the concept is retarded, and you had, priests or what have you come out and say that hell, it was a creation of the church to basically scare people. So definitely don't want people worrying about that, but you need to understand why that was put forth, and that, anything dealing with the afterlife or eternity is something they want you to only understand, their way. Now, the concept of a hell and burning forever is not something that you find in the ancient world. It's not something that they talked about. We understand about the underworld and that whole thing with the ancient Egyptians, basically talking about when you understand coming back here. None of them was trying to give you any kind of understanding that you will burn forever in the hellfire and there's this demon, devil, Satan, or what have you. It doesn't exist. So, you have to understand the whole prospect of reincarnation, as the ancients put it, was something that they believe. Now, reincarnation, a lot of people today laugh at it. They don't, think about it at all as far as being something that's possible. But everybody in the ancient world spoke of reincarnation, and it's just there. Can't ignore it. Now, reincarnation comes from the Latin word. Well, it means in Latin to enter the skin again. Now, the ancient Greeks believed in reincarnation. Pythagoras and the Greeks basically called it metempsychosis, which basically comes from the Greek word empsychon. Now, empsychon basically means to put a soul into. So it's there. It's something that was talked about. It's something that we got to look at. And, when you begin to, study the ancient world of Kemet and Sumerians and everybody else, this is what you're going to see. And it's something that pertains to us, and it's something that is being hidden from us because they don't want us to really understand the full dealings and workings of reincarnation and how to escape it. So it's a lot to it. Now, we know Pythagoras studied in ancient Kemet. He believed in reincarnation, as well as Pluto, Socrates, and a bunch of other Greek historians talked about reincarnation. And as I said, they had a word for it. So we understand the whole thing about ancient Greece, how they gave us the Bible. And when you really get your head around all the bull crap that it's talking about and really pay attention to what I've been explaining about the book, it's giving you reincarnation, plain and simple. So when Jesus is talking to Nicodemus, he means exactly what he's saying in that whole passage as far as reincarnation and the kingdom of heaven being a woman's womb, as we talked about, and that's getting the Bible and Christianity finally explained. But it's a lot you got to really pick up and understand with those verses when he's talking to Nicodemus. So it says in John 3, this is one that says, there was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. And the same came to Jesus by night and said unto him, Rabbi, we know that thou art a teacher, come from God, for no man can do these miracles that thou doest, except God be with him. Now, pay attention to what Jesus says, because he's basically not even really answering the question. So we got to pay attention to why would he say this. Jesus answered and said unto him, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of heaven. That's not what he asked. He said you got to have God with you in order to do the miracles that you've done. So why is he talking about you can't even come into the kingdom unless you be born again? Nicodemus saith unto him, how can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter the second time into his mother's womb and be born? Jesus basically reiterates and says, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God. That which is born of the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the Spirit is spirit. Marvel not that I said unto thee, ye must be born again. The wind bloweth where it listeth, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but canst not tell whence it cometh, and whithereth it goeth. So is everyone that is born of the Spirit. Nicodemus answered and said unto him, how can these things be? Jesus answered and said unto him, art thou a master of Israel, and knoweth not these things? Verily, verily, I say unto thee, we speak that we do know, and testify that we have seen, and ye receive not our witness? If I have told you earthly things, and ye believe not, how shall you believe if I tell you of heavenly things? And no man hath ascended up to heaven, but he that cometh down from heaven. Think about that. Even the Son of Man, which is in heaven. And here's the key. And even as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whatsoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Now, what does Moses and the serpent have to do with what he's talking about? What happened with the serpent? Moses prayed and asked God to basically heal the people that was bitten by these serpents because they died. And he said, hey, make a staff, basically put this serpent on it, and that anybody who sees it will be healed. And we know it's talking about the medical caduceus, and that it is the symbol for healing, but it's much more to it. We know the serpents deal with Kundalini, and that whole image of the caduceus is talking about Kundalini energy rising to the pineal gland, which is what? The key, the power that's going to basically give you eternal life. It's going to help you transcend, the physical form and basically go into your spiritual form and live eternally, as we'll get into. But it's giving it to you right there. Now, one of the keys to it is really understanding this whole concept between the serpents and us, which is why, as I said, the reptilians or the dinosaurs, whatever you want to call them, which we're going to break that down and explain it more. It's more to this. Plays a major role that a lot of people is not seeing. So in a lot of verses, you got to be able to pay attention to exactly what it's talking about. Negate everything that they told you in church. He's giving it to you right there, saying you have to be born again to enter into the kingdom of heaven, because it's a joke. It's the woman's womb. There's something more to it to basically transcend. You need basically what Moses was talking about. You get what I'm saying? Two separate things he's talking about. Talking about being born again. That's one. Coming back into the physical form, and then the spiritual, which is why he separated the two, and he was clear, which is born of flesh is flesh, spirit is spirit. Because whether you understand or not, it's a rebirth process all over again in both ways. So spiritual at first, we are born in flesh. You die, you go back spiritual, but then you have a decision to make. Are you going to stay spiritual? We're going to go back to flesh and reincarnate. So this is why he's giving you the two instances of flesh is flesh, spirit is spirit, born again, flesh, as Moses, the serpent, lifted up the serpent in the wilderness. so shall the Son of Man. You, us as well, have to be lifted up the same way with the Kundalini energy, either making a choice to be flesh or spirit. So now when we're talking about Kundalini rising in the spine, to bring it into the Egyptian mythology and what the Egyptians talked about, we know this is the Jed pillar, Asar, or Osiris, whatever you want to call him. So now you have to understand, one, where Osiris's body was put back together was in the Delta, in Lower Egypt. So basically, he was put back together in a place called Jedu, which is basically where they get the Jed from, which is the original name for Osiris. Before he got his physical body and form, he was represented by this symbol that looked like a spine, or the vertebrae on the spine, and he was called the Jed, and this was where he was put back together in Jedu, which is in Lower Egypt. So now in Jedu, they have a festival ceremony of the rising pillar, whatever you want to call it, and it basically represents the eve of the agricultural new year. They call it the Korax or the Chorax festival. It's from December 10th to January 8th. January 8th would basically mark the eve of the agricultural new year. The next day will be considered Pert, which Pert means going forth. So the ancient Egyptians looked at this time where you had the flood waters basically start to recede and the land begin to come up out of the waters again. And they called it Pert Asar Neb Jedu. Pert Asar Neb Jedu. And it basically means house of Osiris. So they basically were celebrating the eve, or the beginning of the harvest, the festival where things are starting to grow, food is starting to grow, agriculture is beginning to be seen, the grass is beginning to come up out of the flood waters or the waters or what have you, and this was something that they celebrated. Another reason why you have the whole celebration of the water lilies basically springing up out of the darkness of the water and basically blooming on top, which is also a representation of Asar, Osiris, because it's showing basically what he represented back then, which was the new harvest. Another reason why Osiris was green is because of this. He originally having to do, or what they understood, they always, put him with agriculture and, life and death or what have you. But this is one of the reasons why he was green. But you got to understand, Osiris represents, life, death, that cycle, rebirth, ascension unto the gods, basically into the next phase of existence or what have you. Osiris represents all of that. Anything that has to do with the cycle of reincarnation, with life, death, ascension, or what have you, it's Asar, which is why they put him, on top. So you got to understand what he deals with, and everything that's pertaining to him, you're going to see it's going to have some facet of either agriculture or, spiritual ascension or the wheel of reincarnation or what have you, which is why a lot of people never really paid attention. When you look at the Jed pillar, the top you have the vertebrae or the spine, but look at the bottom base. The bottom is basically representing the tree, the trunk of a tree coming out of the ground. That's how it looks. So you have both representations of the tree and the spine, basically giving you the tree of life when you really understand what it's talking about. So it's all right there, all in Osiris itself, dealing with so much. So the Korax festival was basically that, and them basically celebrating the growth of the new harvest. This is where a lot of people believe Christmas really began, because what they would do was you would have these shaped body shapes of Osiris, and they do them with different types of bodies, where they would basically put in mud, barley, and what have you, and it would grow these trees. And this is something that they would celebrate. And this is where a lot of people believe the pagans stole the idea of worshiping the trees and worshiping the roots, plants, and what have you from this Korax festival that the ancient Egyptians was doing long before we ever heard of Christmas, or pagans for that matter. So this is where it's believed to have begun. You have the date again, December 10th, January 8th, right around that time we got Christmas or what have you. All this stuff was going on around that time pertaining to the ancient Egyptians, and not the Greeks or pagans or what have you. This is where they got the concept from, when you understand the celebration of any type of harvest or anything like that begin there. And this is what the pagans And everybody else was really into that. The Druids, what have you, was into these types of festivals. So you got to understand when you're talking about Kundalini rising and this whole process, same thing Jesus is talking about in the Bible. We're talking about two different processes that's taking place at death. You have two cycles that's going to occur. Well, one out of the cycle is going to occur. You're going to either reincarnate, come back to the physical, or you're going to move forward into the spiritual. And that's what it's representing with Kundalini energy. The Caduceus, the two serpents representing the dualistic nature. Remember, we're talking about dualism here. You have spiritual, physical. You get it? So this is why it's two different cycles. One cycle of flesh, one cycle of spirituality, which is basically what Jesus is talking about in the Bible when he's saying, you know, you have the flesh is flesh, spirit is spirit. Now, Osiris represents the mastery of those cycles, plain and simple. That's what you got to understand, the master of that cycle. And when you look at the Book of the Dead, remember, we talked about this. You have the Book of the Dead with Ani. And what happened when Ani passes judgment? Remember, judgment of the heart, you know, truth, ma'at, plain and simple, which when you really understand, your heart is both on this physical realm, spiritual and physical at the same time, because your heart generates that magnetic field, that energy, spiritual, and it's flesh. It's dual, it's powerful when you really understand. But remember, when Ani passes through judgment and makes it, you know, to Asar, he's called the Osiris, or Asar Ani, or Osiris Ani, having the Osiris name before his name, basically saying he mastered, you know, same thing the Kabbalist is talking about, mastering the Malakuf, the physical level, but him as well as the spiritual. He mastered it, he moved forward. So you have to look at the cycles and look at what it's talking about and how it's all basically giving you Osiris when you understand. It's going to make a lot more sense later. So you have Bible, Jesus telling you, you know, you got to be reborn, or you got to be as what Moses did, the medical Caduceus, the Kundalini energy with the serpents, and you got to choose. And the whole thing is having the power and the knowledge to basically make it to even have the opportunity to choose. If not, it's going to be chosen for you, basically. So now this is all in the pyramid text, and it's saying here, this is utterance 321. It says, to say the words, O you, whose back is on his back, bring to Unis. One of the reasons why I went to Egypt to go to Unis, another reason why I'll talk about later. Bring to Unis the offering mill which is on the back of Osiris, so that Unis may ascend on it to heaven, which we know that's talking about biblical heaven. That's just how they translated the word. So that Unis may serve as cartier, guardian, protector, or protection to Re in the sky. So now we understand so many people talking about, you know, meditation and Kundalini rising and how meditation helps out with that. And we see the dragon symbology everywhere, especially in the Caduceus and with Kundalini rising, which is basically, you know, two serpent dragons that represent those things. But we see esoterically, dragons represent immortality. They represent the cycle of life and death, and we see it in so many different places with Ouroboros, which we'll talk about, and you know, the wheel of reincarnation, usually represented with a dragon on the outer part of it. But we see the symbology in so many different places, having the dragon esoterically represent immortality, which is basically really giving us a major clue into the fact that we're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing the dragon symbology in the Bible. We're seeing it in ancient Kemet, which we're going to get into, and what it's pertaining to. So now, before we get into all this, let me give you my theory on all of this, because my research we're going to talk about in a second. But when you look at it, you know, we know the ancient Egyptians was basically the first alchemists. They were into alchemy. And when you understand alchemy, which we'll talk about in a second as well, you understand that there are different types of, you know, alchemy and different types of transmutations or agendas or goals you would have with alchemy. Not just about base metals and gold or what have you. So we understand that. So paying attention, doing the research and looking at it, it seems as if the ancient Egyptians developed the elixir of life, which is one of the things you hear about in alchemy with the whole philosopher's stone and all that stuff. But it seems as if they did it. One of the things I want you to consider is the existence of something means it had to exist Now, we have imaginations, of course, but the concept of something had to come from somewhere. So far as we go back, we're seeing this stuff. And I want to also point out, the ancient Egyptians wasn't into all that. I mean, they didn't put on plays and shows and all that kind of stuff to really lie about something that is this outrageous. This is something that they really talked about. So from my research, we see that they were into alchemy. I believe that they discovered this elixir that either granted immortality or, longevity or something to that effect. It either healed, it did something, and that they had it, and it was only, given access to by the kings, and it was made by the women priests or the women rulers. Now, in the Egyptian mythology, you would see those rulers or those gods, those women gods, represented by, the gods of Egypt, and not a person that we could point to in ancient history. But you have Hathor, and you have Hathor in so many different instances and different depictions, holding the pots, which we're going to also talk about in a second, that's dealing with this elixir. Now, me and many other people believe that this is one of the reasons why ancient Kemet was taken down. It's because they did have this elixir, that they did have this secret, and people wanted it. People attacked Kemet a lot for it, and Kemet had a different reason why they had it, whatever that was, but they didn't want to really give it out. I don't believe so to just anybody. And as I said, the pharaohs was the only one who was supposed to have access to this elixir. So you have that. But I also believe, and from my research, that they could only prepare this elixir, whatever you want to call it, with the aid of these dragons. I know it's going to sound crazy, but y'all know me. I always bring my proof. But that's what it seems. This is just me giving you my theory, not giving you actual research, but what I believe and what I'm seeing as far as doing the research. And my theory is that you read about this elixir they had for the plants, to make the plants grow big or make real crazy vegetation patches or what have you. That was one thing, and that has to do with Osiris as well. But the one about immortality or about longevity, and I believe it's in the Bible as well when you get into the whole Lazarus thing, what they was talking about, and all of that. They stole little pieces from Kemet when they seen what they was doing and put it in the Bible, just like they did with this whole thing with Osiris and the serpent or what have you. That's basically talking about Osiris with Moses. And we can easily get the hard part out of the way, the spooky part, which is basically the existence of these dragons in ancient Kemet, because they would have to be there in order for them to basically make this stuff. So the hard part we can get out the way easily with the existence of dragons or dinosaurs in ancient Kemet. It has been proven. Now, we talked about this in Mystery School 5. I talked about this, about how they can prove the existence of dinosaurs in ancient Kemet, that they talk about dinosaurs or dragons in the pyramid texts. We'll get into this in a second. But, it has been proven, and it's one of the things, of course, we won't see on mainstream media in America, but it's been talked about and shown over there. Now, it says here, and of course, they want to use the existence of dinosaurs to say that they helped build the pyramids, which is crazy. Cairo, Egypt, a team of archaeologists at the University of Cairo, led by Egyptologist Nabir Ibn al-Samud, has uncovered ancient papyri and a number of stone palettes dating back to 3500 BCE, which could prove ancient Egyptians may have lived amongst dinosaurs. Now, they basically say down here that they would dismiss this claim if he wasn't such a well-known, Egyptologist. And it says here, I understand, this is what he's saying. He's saying, I understand our present view of human history is completely different from what we are proposing, but based on these ancient papyri, we must consider the possibility that dinosaurs may have lived amongst ancient Egyptians and were possibly tamed to carry huge blocks that compose the pyramids. And they citing the Narma palette, which is real. This is one of the oldest artifacts in world history, period. It's real. And we see this, and it's no other animal we can pertain that to looks dinosaur-like. There are a lot of animals that are extinct, and we don't know what actually existed. And it's one of the big things. One of the big things that they are not talking about is the existence, or the pyramid text talking about the existence of these beasts or dragons, serpents, or what have you. It's all in the pyramid text. It's all throughout Kemet, them talking about these serpent dragons. And basically here it is. They even classify them in different groups, hybrids and Drake and different types of dragons. When you look at the pyramid text, it's right in there. I mean, we got to look at one talking about Wajet, which is a serpent. And the ancient Egyptians had a lot of, serpent deities in their mythologies. It's one of the reasons why I went to Kemet last year to really see for myself, was it really talking about this, and talk to the guys that was there for them to point it out, to see in the pyramid text, was they really actually talking about serpent dragons? And clear as day, they were. And it's something that nobody's really, talking about, because one, when you look up Ouroboros and the whole history of it, comes from ancient Kemet. It comes from the pyramid text of Unis, which is why I went there, and that's where they found it. Now it's saying this is basically the origin. Its origin goes back to ancient Egypt and ancient Greece. Originally, its first use was in the emblematic serpent that was found in the hieroglyphics that was in the sarcophagus chamber of the pyramid of Unis. And here I am right there in that chamber. It is also used in the Nordic mythology as part of the concept of the story of the serpent Jormungandr. Now, a lot of you have been, hearing about the pyramid text and hearing about ancient Kemet and studying the pyramid text and everything like that for years. None of you have really heard people really expand upon the existence of serpent dragons or dragons in the pyramid text. It's just not something that you hear about, because people don't want to be known as, somebody talking about something spooky or far-fetched, in their videos. I'm a real researcher. I really do this. I be up for days researching, trying to figure this stuff out, because I'm obsessed with it. I'm just keep it real. But it's good for us to have this recording of this information and pass it down to each other. We have to know they left this stuff for us to put together, and we're not doing it. And somebody has to figure this stuff out. But you have this dragon symbology everywhere, and more than it pertaining to alchemy or what have you. With the dragons, the main thing that you're getting when you do the research is the connection between these dragons and women. It's just there. Even when I talked about Maria Gambudis, when she was founding the whole civilizations with just women, they always had this connection. The person that was considered the great mother was always buried with this figurine of a serpent dragon, or the transition from this reptilian to a human. Remember, I showed that in one of my videos, but it was there, and it's always this connection. So one of the things you got to realize, long before, the Salem witch trial, the so-called Salem witch trial, women was being called, there were witches or whatever like that. Witches did not originate with Salem. Just let me say that. You had in ancient Kemet, the alchemists, which were women, and that's where the whole thing sprang from the women in ancient Kemet being alchemists, being the ones who made these elixirs and potions or what have you. Long before any so-called witch brewed anything, they was doing it in ancient Kemet. So witches and that whole concept that began with some white women in Salem, they begin in ancient Kemet, and you can see clear as day in the hieroglyphics. Pay attention to what she's holding. They look like cauldron pots. Look at the flames right here. These are flames where these pots are going to go on. That's where the whole concept and visualization of a cauldron on fire comes from, right from the hieroglyphics, right in the reliefs, because this is what the women was doing. They was brewing this stuff. And I believe there is a major connection with the dragons and them that they don't want us to connect. So now let me give you alchemy real quick. It says, alchemy as a form of scientific and philosophic practice, and is a kind of a combination of magic and science. And the base philosophy of alchemy is the study of transforming something into something else, basically. Origins of alchemy date back to ancient China and Egypt, became popular in Europe during the Middle Ages. The original main purpose of studying alchemy was to be able to turn normal metals, base metals, into silver and gold through transmutation by creating and using the philosopher's stone. This is all metaphorical when you really understand it as well. The more magical side of alchemy is some other goals, such as achieving immortality through discovering the elixir of life. I've talked about Egyptian high alchemy. Everybody is known. This is where it's coming from. And we know ancient Kemet, ancient China. When you go to ancient China, still, just like in Thailand and many other ancient places, India as well, we find the ancient civilizations that did something one way, and all that changed at some point, which we'll get into. But that is there. That is something we can't ignore, the existence of the Egyptians and Egyptian high alchemy and what they were really into, and that the process was more than just gold. And if you are understanding the Egyptian civilization and knowing that, there wasn't really about having gold and being super wealthy or whatever like that. They used gold for what they used gold for. Then they had to also use the practice of alchemy for spiritual use as well. Now, in the ancient world, in ancient Kemet, spiritual illumination was always symbolized by gold, which is why you see a lot of solid gold reliefs in ancient Kemet. You see so many different depictions that's in gold, gilded in gold, because it had to do with something really spiritual. And of course, not a lot of those survived. The ones that did, it's probably not giving away much information, but you can imagine the ones that's really deep or have really high knowledge was stolen, and either they took the gold and used it for whatever, or they still have it somewhere. But gold was symbolic for spirituality, so you had so many different depictions. A lot of people are not picking up on this or really looking at the reliefs hard, but you see that this elixir was meant for more than just immortality. Like I said, it possibly could have been to heal or longevity or what have you, but it was only privy to the pharaohs. And you see so many different depictions of these potions, these cups, these little pots given to the pharaohs on the throne of these potions, and them drinking these potions. A lot of people don't pay attention to this stuff. Look at it. You can see clear as day what it's talking about and what it's showing. It's showing them getting these potions, and it's a lot of different reliefs that show this stuff. This is where the whole concept of a whole holy grail comes from. This is where that concept comes from of a cup. Having the elixir of life, or having a potion that could grant its drinker immortality or long life or what have you. That whole concept, we're talking about eternal life, which basically in Egyptian mythology goes back to Osiris, which we just seen is dealing with Jesus, and Jesus giving us that whole interpretation of Osiris and the Caduceus and Kundalini. It's all the same stuff. So Jesus and the whole cup, the Holy Grail story and all that is basically going back, to this whole, all these reliefs and what it's basically pertaining to as far as, immortality. Same stuff. It's in the reliefs. It's there. It's been there for a long time. A lot of people are not talking about it or putting it into its proper context as it pertaining to these elixirs in Egyptian high alchemy. Now I'm saying here, in Egypt, Thoth, the god of knowledge and wisdom, became immortal after drinking the white drops of an immortality potion. The gods of Egypt would drink the milk of the mother goddess Hathor, the cow. Hathor is depicted as a white cow and was often seen carrying a cup of her own milk. Hathor was closely associated with Wadjet, the snake goddess. And remember, when I showed you the depictions, you had Hathor. This is Hathor carrying those cups. This is not cow's milk, but it's just symbolic of alchemy. And one of the things you got to understand is when they had the vessels. This is another symbolic thing in ancient Kemet. Vessels of water represented the woman, plain and simple, because it's basically saying it's the woman's womb. Vessels of water, the woman's womb, you come from your mother's water. It's the same thing. The vessel, they call it the womb a vessel. It's the same thing. So it's giving you that type of concept. And when you look at ancient Egyptian mythology anyway, Hathor and Thoth is two of the main two spiritual gods in ancient Kemet. It goes on to say, in the Hindu religion, the story goes that the gods churned the ocean of milk, the Milky Way, that surrounds the earth for 1,000 years with a serpent. The best part of this milk, called Amrita, was collected and ate by the gods to give them immortal life. The nectar of immortality that the gods ate of was forbidden to humans. It's just like in the garden, forbidden fruit. Only the gods can eat it. Still to this day, the Amrita of the gods is associated with milk, yogurt, butter, and honey. A popular Hindu religious dish is Pamarchita, a food associated with Amrita. It is made from milk, yogurt, sugar, clarified butter and honey. It is offered up to the statues of their gods on certain festival days. The milk cow is revered in India as the mother goddess because of the nourishment that it provides. And the whole thing with this connection with these reptilians, these serpent dragons and the women is tough, but it's not a coincidence that we see it a lot, which I'm going to get into more in a second. But having Hathor, woman goddess, representing, immortality, her milk, and then her being the ones that we see in the reliefs making these elixirs is alluding to something. And the whole thing with reptilians anyway, we know, they have the power of regeneration. Not all reptilians in existence. You have some, lizards or geckos or what have you that can regenerate limbs. It's just something that we got to look at and make the connections, when you have these dragons or what have you, these lizards pertaining to not just immortality but the woman and the whole, it's in the Bible. It's there. Even when you look at Ezekiel 29:3, remember you have to see, is it calling the Pharaoh of Egypt a dragon? What is it saying here? It says, "Speak and say, thus say the Lord God, behold, I am against thee, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the great dragon that layeth in the midst of his river, which have said, my river is my own, and I have made it for myself." So you got two things going on here. One, the whole context of Egypt and these dragons. Again, going back into the pyramid text and what they were talking about as far as dragons and the pyramid text, there you have it in the Bible as well, making that connection. And I talked about in Mystery School 5 how, in the Bible, they're talking about dragons, dinosaurs, or what have you, whatever you want to call them, in the Bible as well. The connections are there. Nobody is giving it to you. They ain't giving you sermons about this in church. People are not really talking about it, yet it's there clear as day. And there have been many books written on the whole, concept and the whole notion of these dragons being in ancient Kemet and what all that really means. It's a lot of information out there, and not too many people even care to put the dots together. The main people, I should say, who should be worried about it, which is us. It pertains to us. And we are the ones who are not really dealing with it or care about it because we're so, deceived by so much other stuff. So then when you bring it together, you look at this stuff. One of the things we can't contest, the existence of dinosaurs in ancient Kemet or dragons in ancient Kemet, proven, existed. Just not even deal with that. This is the issue. This is the thing. And this is what a lot of people have picked up on, but don't know how to put it in its proper context. You have people out there who will tell you dinosaurs never existed, but they can't give you the why the government would lie about this. It's like, why? Why would they lie about this? I mean, how did these bones get here? What's going on? Why make this stuff up? And this is the thing. This is the thing what people are not seeing. One, they existed. Just not the way they are showing us and telling us on TV or what have you. The thing is, one, if they really existed and they can prove to be, real and true, why are they going through great lengths to lie about it? Museum bones and all these stories or what have you. What are they trying to cover up and hide? And that's the clue. The whole thing is, one, this is not what they look like. Plain and simple. Now, is it a possibility you had these big flying dragons? Yes. The ones that look like serpents with wings possibly existed. But these guys right here, that's the tough one. That's the one we do not know. And this is what the people are looking at and saying are false, that they existed. What they are in fact trying to do is to cover up the true identity of what dinosaurs really are, which are dragons, and they are not as big as they say they are. Not in all cases. It's a possibility they can be that big, but definitely didn't look the way they're saying they look, which is why the confusion is there, seemingly like they're hiding something. It wasn't no 65 million years that they existed and we wasn't there. We coexisted with them, and they're trying to cover that up because, as I said, there's some kind of connection to the dragons, black women, and immortality that they want to keep away from us. Plain and simple. So they made up these lies, these stories about the dragons. Remember, they put it clear as day in the Bible that Satan is the dragon. And you had all the mythology back in the day, all the stories of these dragon killers, and they kidnapping women, and knights had to go and save them. This stuff came from somewhere real. It's not a fairy tale. We know it as a fairy tale today because that's how they want us to perceive it, as something that was spooky and hocus pocus. Bullshit. It existed. And again, you can go and look at the many depictions, the many pictures out there of these knights, these men killing these dragons. And I believe that's what they look like. They were smaller. And there's something more to them. You had at some point, this is what happened. Everybody in the world, either Allah was told about these dragons, but they came together and they hunted and killed them all for whatever reason, either to basically keep out of the hands of the public the possibility of immortality or whatever, they did, whatever they was here for, but it's gone. I think it was some sort of spiritual connection to them and the black women or women period, but mainly black women, I believe, because, they would be fully spiritual. But something was there. Something was there that they want to keep from us. So the lie has been told. 65 million years we didn't coexist. Why would they lie about that? If we existed with them, what would be the reason you would lie that we didn't? Unless it's that. Plain and simple. It's the only thing you can think of. Why lie that we coexisted when we can look at ancient civilizations who drew them? Ancient Egyptians talked about them, depicted them. Why lie about it unless there's more to it? So then you start to look at everything. You look at the Garden of Eden. You look at the fact that Eve, the woman, is deceived by the serpent, supposedly Satan. But as I said, it can't be a snake. It just can't be a snake in a garden on the tree. You understand? So much symbology going on in the garden, which is why I always talk about it. Had to be a serpent dragon because, as God says, I'm going to curse you on your belly. So if he was already on his belly, it would be no reason for him to be saying that. So it's more likely that the serpent in the garden on the tree was a serpent dragon and not a snake. Plain as day. And what was the snake telling Eve? That if you eat from this tree, you will be immortal. Giving you again the combination of the serpent dragon, the tree, which would be us, Kundalini, the spine, whatever you want to call it, and the woman, that there is a connection. Immortality exists with this connection here. And again, tracing it back to the Great Pyramid in Kemet, where you have the Queen's Chamber pointing to Draco constellation, which would be the serpent dragon, dealing with the brain, the Great Pyramid. All that is there. The Great Pyramid, same thing in the Garden of Eden, the brain, the woman, the dragon, which could represent the lower reptilian brain or a lot more. It's so much symbology there, dealing with life, death, rebirth, that people are just not picking up on. They're not touching on it. Now, when you go to Job, remember in Job, you had Satan basically walk into a meeting with God and angels and what have you. So when you look at this depiction, look at God. He's wrapped with a serpent. You have Satan down there that has dragon wings. The symbology is giving you they are immortal, plain and simple. And remember what God did not want. He did not want us to eat from the tree of life, because he said what? We will become like them. And the serpent said, what is that? Living forever, immortal. So it's all there. Going back to Osiris, going back to what Jesus is talking about later on in the New Testament. And as I said, with the Old Testament, that's what we should be worried about only. Because that tree that is being guarded, that tree of life, is basically the key. So if we answer into this God, and this God is basically telling you from day one, from Genesis, I'm deceiving you. I don't want you to get this tree, so everything else is bullshit. And we sitting up here following and not paying attention to that tree. That's what we want. And, you get Jesus and he's telling you the same thing in parables. I speak to you in parables. You can't enter the kingdom of heaven unless you are born again. You can't basically do nothing unless you do what Moses did and having, the serpent and all that. It's giving you the same stuff. The same stuff. People just not picking up on it. So, the garden story is basically symbolic of exactly what they were saying in ancient Kemet and in the ancient world, that only the kings, which, in Kemet, they was considered god kings or what have you, was basically allowed to have this elixir. Same thing. Take us back to the Jed. You have the Jed pillar being that tree, the tree of life, tree of knowledge of good and evil, what they want to call it. Connected to the Jed, which would be your spine, and so on and so forth. You can also look at the brain stem, the tree in your brain. You have that whole concept as well, but it's giving you everything right there. But we know the Jed leads to the brain, and we know we have the lower brain, which is reptilian, and that whole concept, and that we need to basically master the reptilian lower brain to help us gain control of our higher consciousness, our higher self. There's so many different symbologies in these stories that's really getting into life, death, the whole cycle, but giving you hints and clues into the ancient world that you should go and look at. So again, a lot of people won't be able to make that connection with Osiris, but when you really understand and do your research, we know the Old Testament, the Bible itself, is giving you allusion into ancient Kemet, which is basically telling you, go look in Kemet. Soon as you get into Genesis, they're in Kemet, Kemet right there, telling you need to go back and look at this stuff and study what it's talking about. It's going to lead you to Osiris. It's going to lead you into a wealth of knowledge and information when you really get into it. Now, we see this concept a lot. If you watch Iron Fist, or the whole thing I told you guys to watch on Netflix with Jessica Jones, and you have Luke Cage, you have what is next after Luke? You have Daredevil, you have the Defenders, you have Iron Fist, you have Punisher. It's like a whole combination of Marvel shows on Netflix that you got to check out. Now, if you've seen Iron Fist, what was they talking about? Even the Defenders is where it's really at. In the Defenders on Netflix, they was talking about, you had the Hand. Remember, they were a group of, powerful people who were immortals, who, when you understood at the end, got their immortality from basically an elixir that they basically bathed in this huge cauldron. And that's how they was able to obtain immortality. But the kicker at the end was they were getting the potion that they made to be immortal. They needed the bones of a dragon in order to make the elixir. So it is right there giving you that hint and clue. And as I said before, whoever is running this thing is immortal. You cannot escape that. This stuff has been going on for thousands of years, and they've been right there like they was there yesterday, from day one. They have to be immortals. And it's possible that they could have, as I said, found this treasure, this elixir, or discovered it, because they left Kemet. They left the gold, they left everything, the artifacts. They didn't care. They got what they want and kept it moving. And that's something you can't ignore. You got to look at that fact. But you have that concept, Iron Fist. The same thing with Dragon Ball Z, the Eternal Dragon, representing Kundalini energy, representing the 7 balls, 7 chakras, and everything like that. The concept is there in so many different instances with the connection between dragons and immortality. Can't ignore it. Now, we have to look at the spiritual ideologies of the ancient Egyptians and why they would feel a need to come up with an elixir of immortality when they basically was, really into death and resurrection and everything like that, to that trained eye. It's a lot more that was into when you really get into it, pertaining to life and death. But seemingly it will be something that take you out of the realm of spirituality, having a potion. And it could be a lot of reasons why they would want to create that potion, probably understanding that, one, the spiritual powers were even limited back then. They wasn't as powerful as they wanted to be, and they needed more time to basically understand what had happened. They were clearly headed in the right direction as far as having the knowledge to build what they builded. And as I said, we can look at the Great Pyramids as being built before the dynasties, but even still, we can't ignore what the dynasties accomplished, which is still amazing to this day. The colossal statue stuff we still can't do this day, they were able to do. So even if people want to look at the dynastic period of ancient Kemet and those pharaohs and people being just regular humans or what have you, they still had this knowledge that is unbelievable today. So we can't just look at them as primitive at all. But they could have possibly wanted this potion for that reason, to basically, stay in the physical form longer. And there's so many different concepts you got to look at, because you had the whole mummification process. And, a lot of, when you start getting really deep into this and start looking at, start reading different scholars, you start to come to the same conclusion with this stuff. A lot of people believe that that was the last death or the last life for them, that they was basically hanging it up as far as the cycle of life with mummification process. Them basically making it so that, before I get into that, remember the ancient Egyptians talked about being able to leave the body and come back. There are Chinese stories, and I can't remember the name of one, but it's one Chinese story where you have one of these spiritual beings, or one of these people, let's just say, leaving the body. He leaves his body and he tells his friend to basically, hey, watch my body, I'll be back. He basically going on this astral journey or what have you, spiritual journey, traveling the universe. And the person basically, he gives him 8 days. And on the 7th day, because he had to do something, he basically burned his body up. He said, if I ain't back in 8 days, just burn my body up. Burned his body up on the 7th day, I believe. And he came back to his body was gone. So he had to end up going into the body of some homeless guy with a bum leg or what have you. It's an old Chinese story I heard a while ago. But the same type of concept was there in ancient Kemet, where they was leaving the body and going out. As I said, how did they know? How did they know what Saturn looked like? How did they know the configuration of the planets or what have you? They were clearly able to go out there and see it somehow, some way. And I think mummification, as a lot of scholars believe as well, was them basically saying, I'm not coming back to this body. I'm leaving it, not coming back. I don't want anybody else to inhabit this body. And that whole process is a lot to it. Who knows? But it was something to that effect, that the mummification process was done. The body was preserved, probably for who knows what, but could be something along the lines of that. Either them not wanting some other spirit to come into their body, or them wanting the body to be prepared in a way that they can recognize it if they came back in another body. Because when you pull a brain out through the nostrils, you are basically saying that's it. We don't want nothing coming. They didn't touch the heart, but it destroyed the brain, pulled it out through the nose. So, like, why would you do that? That's basically saying we don't want nothing to inhabit this shell, this body. If the heart is going to stay there, and the brain is there, anybody can basically control the body. So they took out all the vital organs. They basically destroyed the brain, left the heart, because it's spiritual and physical at the same time. So many different ways to look at the whole concept of, mummification, but it's on those lines. They understood what it was about, and they didn't want to transcend and come back into the flesh in that body. So they was basically saying, this body is done. I'm either coming back in a new one, or I'm not coming back at all. Now, this goes again to Osiris and what they supposedly found in the temple of Osiris, and one of the reasons why I went and paid $1,000 in Luxor, down in Luxor, to basically go see it. So again, one of the things is Osiris was telling us, do not come back here. That's supposedly the configuration of ancient Kemet. And supposedly it's trying to warn us to not reincarnate back here, but to go to either Orion or Ceres, which is, where they got Osiris from, or to Andromeda. So again, I talked about this before, and that's what it's saying. So what a lot of people believe was they were all in agreement. They were not coming back here, the pharaohs at least. And that was one of the reasons for the Valley of the Kings, for them to basically bury those bodies and have those tombs, and to never come back here again for whatever reason. And, it's a lot to it. We can also look at the whole elixir, the whole elixir of life, immortality in a different way. It's something that is physical, it's not really spiritual. And it's something that, if you look at it from the point of view of the Europeans, they would be like, well, we can't achieve this physical power, or the spiritual power, I should say, like the Egyptians. We can't achieve this spiritual power like the Africans, but with this elixir we can. This elixir basically negate the fact that we are, void of this melanin, and we don't have this power to basically transcend. But with this elixir, we can use it for whatever. They took nothing. I just can't fathom that. They got what they wanted, which had to be that. It had to be that key to immortality, and they left. So many different artifacts are being found. So much gold has been found since Kemet fell. They left it in the hands of the Arabs for that reason, to make sure we don't get it. But they left it, all the gold, everything. They didn't care, because they got something way more valuable, plain and simple. And the fact that you have, Rothschilds and, Queen or what have you, with them having all this gold, and the Rothschilds trading in gold for a long time, they knew the process. They understood. They had a lot of gold, and who knows what they are able to do and what they're capable of. And they kind of give it away in their buildings and their architecture that they was able to build after the fall of ancient Kemet. So it's a lot there to look at, people. It's a lot there to look at, and to understand that, something happened to where these people are in an agreement. And I touched on this before, because you have the fall of Kemet, and then the fall of the entire ancient world after that. You have the fall of Kemet, the rise of the Europeans, and the fall of the entire ancient world everywhere. If you travel, why is it that everywhere in the ancient world, nobody is living there. It is a tourist attraction everywhere, in every single country. Why is that? The governments are in an agreement that people are not to live there. It's just tourism, and that's it. So you got to look at some of these ruins, as I've shown you, that are magnificent, beautiful. As a primitive civilization, why would you leave them to go to nothing? There was no cities and stuff built back then. It was just beginning. But it was some kind of decree or law or rule across the world that forbid the people from living there, from going back to the ancient world. Even the primitive tribes that's left on the planet, the Mani, nobody mess with the Andaman people, but even a lot of those primitive civilizations that's left, they don't live there. And I think they scared the people into, believing that it's some kind of curse if you mess with the holy lands or what have you, but they abandoned it for a reason. And you see it in Thailand. When I went there, you go back to the old world, the black gods. They left it and they built these new shrines and statues, white faces, pale faces. And they don't even go there. Got to get a tour guide and basically brave it to go into these, ancient civilizations, to these ancient ruins that I'm just shocked that they are not, living there or a part of it, or, a lot of them not even really knowing that it's there or the real history behind it. It's like a whole ancient world has been just left behind and, fell into the whole, understanding of mythology and weird spooky stuff, when clear as day they had far more advanced technology than we have today. Then at the same time, you have this fall of the ancient world where people are basically not there no more, and then you have the fall of African civilizations. The same time, it's like boom boom, get rid of the ancient ruins, destroy what they can destroy, because remember, they destroy a lot of African kingdoms, and then you have the enslavement of African people. It's all connected. Boom, boom. And then you have, like I said, seemingly everybody in leadership, in agreement that the white man basically going to rule. And that's what it seems like. Remember, the Chinese is credited with coming up with guns and gunpowder. They gave it to the Europeans. If you look at the movie, it's a movie with, what's his name? Matt Damon, about the Great Wall of China and fighting these little dragon things, to where they basically was going there to get gunpowder. It's trying to give you that whole history. They went there to get gunpowder, and they ran into this whole thing with the dragons and gunpowder, what have you. Symbology there a lot, but we know what they did once they got that gunpowder and them guns. They came and conquered us. So it's all there. Everything adds up. It's back to back, and we can see how we went from that to where we are today. But the history is there, and we can't ignore it, and we got to look at how it all pertains to life and death, reincarnation. So the key is this, and as I said, don't want you to think reincarnation is a good thing. It's a bad thing. Going all the way back to the understanding of what Osiris was trying to tell us. It's bad. This world is done. It's not what it used to be. It has been taken over. The purpose is to escape reincarnation, and there are ways of doing so according to everything we have been researching. Meditation is the key. Knowledge is the key. It's just that simple. It's given it to you in the Bible. It's given it to you in the ancient world. It's given it to you in every single facet of spirituality, that it's knowledge. I mean, you cannot build a car if you never learn how to. You cannot be successful if you never learn how to. People think you can just do things, or things are going to be a certain way because you're good and you have a good heart. Knowledge must be acquired in order to move forward. It's just that simple. And this is the trap that's laid out in front of us, to forget about that and to be caught up in Cardi B and Nicki Minaj and a whole bunch of stupid shit and forget what really matters. A lot of people are going to want to be back in flesh, not understanding the power that they really have to transcend it all, especially us. Again, biggest thing that happened, you dream. And when you dream, you go to the dream world. That world you manifest. You are talking to people that have their own personality. It seems as if you're talking to a person that's inside your head, but you got to realize you created that person. You created that city. You created the entire dream and everything that's there that's seemingly real. Your perception, your life experiences, what you are gathering to give to your subconscious, which takes it all in. And don't only know this, but knows the knowledge and have the knowledge of future and past. To tap into that is to create whatever kind of world you want, in a world that works for you. Why be stuck in this one that is ruled by them? Which is why this is hell. So yes, I get the question a lot, Have I been here before? Have I reincarnated? If you are here, of course, you reincarnated and you don't have those memories, and that's the whole downfall of reincarnation, to go through life, many lives, and die and come back without the memory of any of it. Anybody you love, anything you have done, the skills you may have acquired. And that's the thing. And as I talked about before, you have people that get like heart transplants, what have you, or some kind of organ transplant, to where they pick up physical attributes or skills from the person that, that passed on, and they got their organ. So people who got a heart who couldn't sing could now sing, stuff like that. So they have memories as well, dreams and memories from the person that passed on. That is a weird thing, but it's giving you that link into the spiritual and the physical, as far as knowledge, and how when you die, it's gone. That body is not animated no more. The energy that's attached to it is gone. The memories, everything is gone. But if you get a live part from another person, it's a possibility that it could be there. So that's there. But that is the main thing. That's the drag. Some people don't care. Some people want to come back and be here in physical form to go through life again. And if you are promised, like these celebrities are, you are promised the next life you will be rich and famous, some people say fuck it. You're not going to have no memories, but if they know who you are, if they make sure you're going to come back and be raised again, they can give you those memories. They can give you that understanding. I mean, just imagine if you was Bernie Mac or Michael Jackson and you died and you came back into a new body and they gave you all your memories of your past life, like you knew who you was and you knew everything else. How would that be so bad? Now you're young again and you're rich and you get to do it all over again. This is what these people are promised, or said to be promised, immortality. You have to think about, what could it be that a person would basically turn on their entire generation, their entire race, everything, for fame and fortune. Has to be something of that effect. And for other people, it's not. It's just simply money. Either you have millions of dollars and be rich and famous, or you die. It's hard to not accept the money and the fame. A lot of people are going to take that instead of death of you and your family or what have you. So only few have went that route and they lost their life. They lost their battle. And none of us was here to back them up. That's the sad part. We don't have the knowledge, or we don't really give a shit to do so. And this is what's continuing to happen. It's a cycle. We trapped in it. Reincarnation. Plain and simple. And life is about escaping that process. Now, life was about something else, in the ancient world. Now it's about that. And they know it. And they are in accordance with universal law, because they are telling you that you should escape it and that you don't want to be here. They're giving it to you. They're not in no fault. It's the simple fact that we choose, because it's about choice, as I talked to, we chose to choose not to research, not to learn, not to put any kind of knowledge into our consciousness, but to just go along to get along. Plain and simple. It's a choice we make. And, you get $100 and I say, hey, can I have the $100? And you give it to me. It's the choice you made. You made that choice. There's no way around that. Now you broke, but you made the choice to be broke. And what swayed you to give me the money? You get what I'm saying? And we have to look at it in the same type of context. What's swaying us to keep following what's destroying us? A lot of people are just lost and confused and not really serious about the information or serious about the next stage. They so lost and caught up in life. And where food going to come from, how bills going to get paid. It's understandable, but you can't ignore this stuff. You can't let them win on that level. That's going to basically cause you to be back here. And at the rate that it's gone, I don't think you want to be here soon. And yeah, it could get better. It won't. Not what they want. And seemingly, when you pay attention, since they don't really care about the natural, they want to do away with the natural. And that's what I'm getting. They want to get rid of all organic, natural shit and have this whole machine technology type world where everything is automated and nothing is, natural or organic. It's crazy. This is what they're pushing towards, it seems like, because they can't get in contact, in touch with the real natural and spiritual, because they can't touch it. They can't have it. They trap in physical, flesh. And this is all they know about, which is why we look at a lot of the stuff Europeans do, and they're always pertaining to materialism. It's almost like, when a person is hooked on a drug and they try to get you to start taking that drug as well, they brag about, how good it is, or they try to shove it down your throat a lot. It's the same thing with materialism. We're living in a materialistic world where everything is about fashion, designer this, trends that, and people are following what's being put out there. And it's all dealing with materialism. Anytime you see people that would, walk past somebody starving on the street, let them starve to death, and spend $100,000 on a car, that's a materialistic person. There's something wrong with that person. And this is what people do. We see it all the time. It's children starving across the world. Yet you have people, buying $1 million cars and, jewelry that they rarely wear, costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's ridiculous. It's a reason why a lot of people hate rich people that brag. When somebody brags, it's like you begin to think about all the good things that could have been done with that money. It's like a reason why a lot of people hate Floyd Mayweather, because he's black, and there's a lot of starving and poor black people out there, and it's like, damn, dude, you're gonna spend how many millions on a watch? And it's people starving in the community, people who need help, and it's so much that materialism drags people into, and basically gets people to forget their morality and their morals and what's right. And we see this a lot with European people. It's crazy to have the wealth they have and not to really care about nothing else or anything that really matters or anything that's really going to help people. We know pharmaceutical companies have cures, doctors have cures. They can fix people, they can stop suffering and pain, yet they choose not to because they want physical money. They want money. And it's sick and it's crazy, and it's basically the same stuff, all wrapped up in the whole materialistic materialism world and everything that deals with, which is why they put it with Satan, because that's them. Just that simple. It's them. And materialism is what's going to keep you here in the materialistic world, Malakuf, and keep you from going there to your heaven and whatever you create for yourself when you transcend, wherever you go. So many different possibilities of existence that's far better than this. This is so primitive material. When you think about the concept of thought and creation, out of thin air, the possibility that you have, the power that you have versus this primitive crap, it's stupid. And that's basically what you got to ask yourself, what you want to do. That's what it boils down to. And the fear that people have with biblical religion, people should have with, spirituality and consciousness as well. That fear is a healthy fear. And not so much in the spooky sense as you just scared every day. Fear is it's a Kickstarter. It makes you do stuff to avoid that, that understanding and, that pain. So knowing that knowledge is a big part of this whole thing is the reason why a lot of people are studying more, wanting to know more, and just even forget all that period. Even here in your physical life now, knowledge is power. Like I said, you can't do it if you don't know how. Just that simple. You can't rely on another person to do it for you. You should learn how to do it. Plain and simple. And it's just how everything goes. The more knowledge you have, the more you can obtain, the more you can do. Plain and simple. I've gotten to where I'm at because of knowledge, and that's what I try to convey to people in the personal economic series and in life every day, that I'm here because I know. As soon as I realized it was a trap and that the government is crooked, all this is about us. Okay, I'm not just going to go to work. You get what I'm saying? Even though you have to, I'm going to figure out a way around that. I just can't go to work now. My brain is scrambled. I can't just get up and go work for these motherfuckers. I got to figure out another way. And that's being a little bit petty with it, but it's the truth. It's how I felt at the time. And still worked for them, of course. Still did what I had to do, of course. But it got to the point to where I didn't have to, and I got to be, who I want to be, for now. It is what it is. And we got to act accordingly, and knowledge helps, with everything. and just knowing and being able to have the knowledge to make the right moves. Again, when you have that knowledge, and if you are meditating and training yourself and programming yourself to use that knowledge so that you make the right decisions in life, you will. And that's what meditation is about. You having the knowledge, you meditating on making sure that you actively go out and pursue what you want and don't make bad choices in life. And this is what people do because they're programming this from the tube, the TV, popular culture, and not from within, not from truth. So they're walking, and when a decision needs to be made, it's the programming. The wrong programming that makes the decision instead of the inward, the meditation program that you set for yourself that's going to make you say, no, I don't need this. I should do this. I should not be with this person. I should not touch that. And that's life, choices. But you have to program yourself to make sure you make the right ones. It's not something you can do on a conscious level without understanding and knowledge. It's just that simple. Those who have it will make the right decisions. I've seen it. I've done it. And that's the reason why I can talk about it, because I know once I had the understanding that I'm not going to do what they want us to do and just fall and, poor and poverty and all. It is what it is. Set a plan, follow that plan, and here it is. It's going to be the same type of scenario with reincarnation, with the process of it, with the process of getting to that point, having the knowledge and the understanding of what you want your subconscious to do at your time of death. It's going to know. If it doesn't know, then it will come back here. Just that simple. So look at it in a dream sense. You go to sleep in your dream, what takes place. Subconscious projects the dream world. But when it's all said and done, where does it go? Back to the body. And you can look at it as an out-of-body experience or whatever you want to call it, or you just inside your own head. What you do know is everything that happens there seems real. It's amazing. So you can look at it on a spiritual sense, that you in no way, when you close your eyes right now, consciously, can have that kind of clarity and powerful, thought as you do when you dream. So it's something to it. So a lot of people think it's just, close your eyes and you just in your own head. No, it's not. You created that. It's a whole different world. You need to understand it, and everything that you should be doing physically should be in the understanding of how to control that. So when the Buddhists begin to talk about reincarnation as them, being able to prove its existence, they talked about it. They talked about the pain of the cycle. As I talk about in Buddhism, reincarnating, having to be back in this flesh again to go through the whole thing again, and if you're doing this, reincarnating, and you have a village of people that's reincarnating back into that village, that's an amazing thing, that they talk about. And being able to guide that person forward with the understanding of their past life and what they need to do in this next life to make sure they don't come back, or reincarnate as an animal or what have you, to actually reach nirvana and that understanding. But to me, I think they always will, come back, because they don't have the connection, the mastery of the physical. And it's, again, I always reiterate that because people need to understand what that means. Plain and simple. You can't just have one. So to be completely spiritual and not deal with the physical is a problem. You just can't succumb to the physical. It's Satan, God. Plain and simple. Same type of aspect. Not serve them at all. Master them. Key word there. You ain't serving nothing. You want to master it. So physical, spiritual. Plain and simple. The material, succumbing to it, is what the the symbology of Satan is all about. That you are dealing with the material that these corporations are pushing, their, demons, which is really yours, because that's what it's coming from. And they're giving you this stuff to entice you and pull you in and make you make, sketchy decisions based on your morality. So now you got to go do this in order to pay your rent. You got to go do this in order to buy those shoes. You want to go do that in order to get this car. And, what are you doing? Is it legit or not? Are you slaving or not? Are you in pain and agony when you're getting it or not? Or is it just a smooth process? Again, which is why I said being wealthy helps with that whole situation. And that's why you got to look at them as being wealthy as them saying, you are God. And this is how they looked at it. If you remember back in the 20s, that's how they thought of themselves, having all that money. Imagine being a billionaire in the 20s. We're gods, we could do anything. It's metaphor. You free, but that's material. If you get caught up in only that, you'll miss the spiritual. And everything that these Europeans do, everything that they're into, is about the material. Just that simple, which is why they can't even perceive the spiritual. They try. Oh, I'm going to do some yoga, that's going to help. I'm going to meditate, that's going to help. But they can never really truly grasp the spirituality of it. Plain and simple. They just do it to try to, get through and to try to get in touch or tap in, because they understand something about that nature that's not natural. And the movements they do towards spirituality helps, as far as yoga and meditation or what have you, make them feel like they're actually doing something spiritually, and they're not. That's as it pertains to us and what we can do. But seeing people, that's all about the fashion, the cars and clothes and everything like that, and everything that's material, and not really doing any type of real spiritual work and understanding and gaining knowledge is crazy. But to keep it real, they're doing more than we are, and that's the problem. We're not all meditating, we are not all doing yoga, we are not all getting the knowledge to understand true spirituality. And in a lot of cases, even though we are melanated, we are worse off than they are. Plain and simple, because even if they come back, they're white. You got to come back and deal with this. Why? We can't fix it because material. Because your brother sell you out for $1 million probably, Friends and family sell out the entire race for money, fame, fortune. So we can't do it because of material. So escaping reincarnation is exactly that, gaining knowledge and understanding of the physical and the spiritual, mastering it, becoming one. So much more to it than just really understanding Kundalini and opening the third eye. It's like a discipline. It's like a way of life, a way you should walk, which is why people always talk about Christ and the way he walked, and you should follow those footsteps and be Christ-like to get the Christ consciousness. But Christ is giving you the metaphor of it all. But one, when you really grasp it, it's pointing to two things: Osiris, Ma'at, truth, and the cycle of power that can transcend, reincarnation, life, death, and ascension, what have you, with Osiris. So the process is something that you do it every day. You in some way put something into you that's going to hinder or help that process every single day. And if you're not conscious of that, then you're going to be putting more bad stuff in yourself than good stuff. And it's a way of life, as I said. So, truthfully, you're living truthfully. You're not really killing yourself with a lot of the food, this crap they putting out. You're meditating, putting knowledge in your head and understanding what this stuff is really all about, that it's nothing, it's material, it's good to look at or whatever like that, but it's going to be done. You're going to die. There's no way around that. You are going to die, plain and simple. You got to grasp that and come to terms with that, and don't fear it. Lose all fear of that. I mean, it's bullshit. Die to come back, just that simple. You want to keep going and understand that it's higher forms of existence than this. Higher forms of existence than here, than just you sitting in your room or your living room and this is boring. I mean, when you really get into it, it's like the possibilities is endless, and what can possibly be done is amazing. It can be really fun. I mean, to be able to explore different levels of existence that we can't even comprehend right now. It's something definitely to look forward to. Or if you want to just be here, I mean, imagine being here, but not here, creating your own world to do whatever you want to do. You want it to be exactly like it is now, you can do that. You want to be exactly like it is now, but you're famous or, powerful or whatever. You can manifest whatever you want once you transcend. And this is what it's hitting towards and alluding to. Your heaven is what you want to create. You do it every night in your dream. You want people to be around and walking around the way it is right now. Your dream world is almost no different from reality. Just that simple. In your dream world, you walk outside, as I said, it's people walking down the street. You talk to people, they got their own personality as if it's another person in your dream, but they from you. Same thing here. You got to grasp that concept. It's a lot to it. It's a powerful thing that happened in dreams. So a lot of people are not really digging that, or really grasping the concept. It's something that is amazing. But to keep reincarnating is just crazy. To keep coming back here, have to deal with this, and who knows how long the knowledge to move forward is going to be around. I can't imagine this stuff being here, the YouTube and everything like that with all this information. Something is going to happen once they get their new world order. It's going to be gone. They're going to figure out a way to get rid of it. Or not. Who knows? Who knows? So definitely try to get people to look at it from that side. But, a video like this is important for people to understand and to really get this information in. So you don't forget, you understand that there's a goal to all this that you want to achieve, and reincarnation is not the way, and you don't want to just, wait till it's too late. You see people do that all the time with church. They get older, they want to start getting close to God, start talking about God more because they know about to die. You don't want to wait long to really start getting into meditation because it takes years, It takes a lot of practice to really get into. And, you're not too old, You're not too old to really get into it. Probably if you're watching me, I don't think it's anybody in their 60s or 70s or what have you. But you 20-year-olds, and I get messages all the time from teenagers who's really into information I put out. But you guys are young, man. You got a long way to go, a lot to learn. And you can start doing this at a young age. Perfect. You got time to put in. When you get this in you and it's not bullshit, and you start doing the research and you start getting the information into you, that's all you're going to want to do. Move forward, but learn how to balance all this. Because as I said before, this stuff is sad. You start doing research, you don't want to do it no more. It's sad. It puts you down, especially everything that pertains to us, our history, civil rights, and all that stuff. You start looking at that stuff, it's like, I don't want to deal with this no more. Move on. You got to learn how to, not process those feelings and understand what you're doing is important, and to move forward. It's going to help you out in the long run. It's just good to know and have that general information to pass down to whoever. It's good when you can answer questions from religious people, and when people ask you questions about this stuff, you have the information. So no reason why I put this stuff out. Try to give it to you guys to learn and to share with other people. So it's important to know. But definitely more. We're going to touch on this in the future. More videos to come, of course. But I want to thank you guys for taking the time to purchase and support and to watch and really get into this whole thing and not really let it go. What we have been seeing from the ancient world and reincarnation, this whole thing with the dinosaurs and what have you, and the dragons, and how it all fits together. And you may have your own research that help this out more, but the concept is there. The pieces are there. We got to put them together and see. It's talking about the same stuff. And there's no doubt in my mind they figured it out. Whoever running it are immortals, and that they did it. Whether the information came from ancient Kemet or from somewhere else, it's the same people. Just that simple. To me, it's them, same ones. 2,000, 5,000, how many years ago, however old they are, they've been here doing the same thing. But there are reasons why they can't just simply take over that have to deal with universal law, plain and simple, and they are acting in accordance with it. It's something that you can't miss when you're looking at this stuff. We know you want to take it over, then just take it over. They could have just been took it over. We know what you want to do. They can't just do it. Why? You got to think about it. There's rules to this stuff. So once you learn the rules, figure out who he is, start acting accordingly. It's still a possibility we can get what we want, but if we're not doing anything, they're going to get what they want, and they have been doing so. So again, thank you guys for taking the time to watch and purchase and support. See you guys next video.